All right, so now we'll go into section one of the AWS Security Specialty walkthrough. So this is going to start with threat detection and incident response. So this walkthrough is designed to help you deeply understand and apply AWS security best practices to practical hands-on implementation of real-world services. It integrates key AWS components like Lambda, EC2, Image Builder, AWS Signer, DynamoDB, and Redshift to solidify your knowledge across the main domains of the certified security specialty. All right, so what we're going to start with today is going to be incident response. That's going to be logging, alerting, recovery, and permission troubleshooting, right? And a little bit of security. So what is this going to do? We're going to reinforce practical security configuration by setting up secure, auditable AWS resources, simulate some exam-like use cases, and then improve recognition and debugging. Who is this for? It's ideal for a cloud engineer, a DevOps engineer, or a cloud security specialist. So this is going to help you get better at doing what you need to do. So let's start off with logging and monitoring. Effective incident response begins with comprehensive logging and monitoring. AWS offers several services to facilitate this. One, AWS CloudTrail. CloudTrail is a service that enables governance, compliance, and operational auditing and risk auditing of your AWS account. It records AWS API calls and events for your account, providing a history of AWS API calls for auditing. This includes actions taken through the AWS Management Console, AWS SDKs, command line tools, and other AWS services. So how do you do this? One, you're in the GUI, which you see in front of us, the graphical user interface. Here's CloudTrail. All right, so navigate to this. All right. Now you can create a trail here, or you can open up the hamburger menu. Then you'll click Trail, right? So here you'll see a list of your trails that are already created. Let's click Create Trail, and let's name it something unique, like Organization Security Trail, right? Now, where do you want to apply this? Enable for all accounts in my organization, right? Storage location, where do you want to store it? Well, how about we do this in an S3 bucket, which is what's listed. So you can use one, you can create one, or you can use an existing one. I don't think I have one for this account, so we'll just use this, all right? So if we're creating a new bucket, CloudTrail will automatically apply the required bucket policies. If you're using an existing bucket, ensure that it has the appropriate permissions for CloudTrail to write logs. All right. Then you want to have encryption. So log file, SSE, KMS encryption. It's optional, but you need to enable server-side encryption with the AWS KMS for added security. All right. So we don't have one. We'll just use new, right? So then you go to log file validation. You enable this feature to ensure the integrity of your log files. Then you have SNS notification, right? This is optional, and you configure AWS SNS to receive notifications for log file delivery, right? So this is where it would go. And then you can enable the logs. Go here for the log group. Which one do you want to do? All right, so you see up here, we have the general details. Now we have the cloud logs. Here's the log group name. Now what IAM role do we want to have to send CloudTrail events to and your logs to the log group? Well, you can use a new one or you can use an existing one, right? Then you can set up a policy document that has allows and for specific resources. You see this one has defaults for this log trail, and you can also add S3 buckets, but basically this is going to be specific for CloudTrail, right? And well, let's go back into this. Okay, so in this, you'll see this is the latest version that was created. This is the ID, allow, log streams, create. What's the resource? One, this is the ARN for US East with the account, CloudTrail, and very specific to this CloudTrail log, right? And then you have put log events, which does the same thing for this trail, and you close it. And then you can add tags. Tags are very important. These are good for assigning who has access, well, who is actually creating this, and then what is going to be created. And you can do point of contact and then name at domain.com. And then you can add your organization, your team, phone number, etc. Click next, and then you'll be created. All right, so let's click next. Well, I don't have this, so let's go this. So remember, there's a couple of other things you can do. Data events can provide insight into the resource operations performed on or within a resource. In the trail setting, let's see. Let's get this. Yeah, trail. All right. So data events, right? So in this, you can choose to log read-write events for specific resources like Amazon S3 buckets that would monitor object level API activity, or AWS Lambda functions to track function invocations. Please note that logging data events can incur additional costs, so evaluate your monitoring needs accordingly. All right, so here's some best practices when you implement this, right? When implementing the following, these will help you with your CloudTrail setup. One, centralized logs. Store CloudTrail logs in a dedicated and centralized Amazon S3 bucket. Restrict access to this bucket to only trusted administrative users to maintain log integrity. Two, enable log file validation. This feature creates a hash for each log, allowing you to detect any modifications or deletions, ensuring the log's integrity. Three, encrypt logs. Use server-side encryption with AWS KMS managed keys, the SSE KMS, for your log files. This adds an additional layer of security, especially when logs contain sensitive information. Four, implement least privilege access. Apply the principle of least privilege to the IAM policies associated with your S3 bucket storing CloudTrail logs. Regularly review and adjust permissions to ensure only necessary access is granted. 5. Enable MFA delete. Configure multi-factor authentication, MFA, delete on your S3 bucket to prevent accidental or malicious deletion of log files. This requires additional authentication for delete operations, but it adds a security layer. And then 6, apply lifecycle policies. So when you set up lifecycle policies on your S3 bucket that maintains those logs, have them transition older log files to the Amazon S3 Glacier or delete them after a certain period. This helps in managing storage costs and comply with data retention policies. So what's some benefits of this? Comprehensive auditing. This provides a detailed history of API calls and user activity, essential for auditing and compliance. Security analysis. This facilitates the detection of unauthorized access and anomalous activities. Operational troubleshooting. This assists in identifying the root causes of operational issues by tracing API calls. Compliance support. This helps meet compliance requirements by maintaining a record of all account activity. By setting up CloudTrail and adhering to these best practices, you establish a robust foundation for monitoring and securing your AWS environment. This proactive approach is crucial for effective incident response and aligns with objectives on the AWS Certified Security Specialty exam. So remember, go to CloudTrail. You can also star this when you sign in, create a trail. You can create it from here. Enter your trail information, enter your storage location, enable log validation. Where is this? Right here. Then you can choose to apply this to what regions for comprehensive coverage. Enter your KMS or use an existing one. Your CloudWatch logs, you can adapt this. You can enable CloudWatch logs here. Enable data events once created, once you click next. And then choose to log all of this for the S3 buckets and set up a lifecycle policy. All right, so that would give you a good first grasp at CloudWatch. Next, let's go into CloudTrail. Sorry. Next, let's go into CloudWatch. All right, so here's CloudWatch, and here's where you can start this. All right, click on the CloudWatch. So what is CloudWatch? CloudWatch is a comprehensive monitoring and observability service designed for DevOps engineers, developers, and site reliability engineers, and IT managers. It provides data and actionable insights to monitor applications, respond to system-wide performance changes, optimize resource utilization, and get a unified view of operational health. So how do you get there? One, you would go to the search bar, type CloudWatch, or you can navigate through here, right, and see under, well, it's not be compute. Management and governance, that might be it. Well, let's see. Yeah, there you go, CloudWatch. So management and governance, CloudWatch. All right, so we'll go here in the console. So in the left pane, you'll see logs, right? So in logs, click on log groups. Then click create log group, right? And then enter a name for your log group. So let's try AWS Lambda my log function. All right. And then within the group, you can create log streams as needed. And log streams are sequences of log events that share the same source. All right. So set your retention. How long do you want this to set? Your class for storage, and then a KMS, which though it says optional, you should use a KMS specific for your project. Then you add relevant tags, click create. All right. Then how do you do the next step? So let's look for metrics. All right. So here we'll click to metrics, go for all metrics. And then let's see. From here, let's see Explorer. We can try this. Let's say compute metrics. Okay. And then let's see, we'll select, no, let's see, from Northern Virginia. So we'll select for this, let's say EC2. All right, usage. So this is going to be this metric. You can select this, and then we can create an alarm. Okay, and so from this, we'll say for the metric name, EC2 call count, type, API, describe this, the service, the class. We'll go for the average. There are other options you can go for this. You can set the period to measure this. You can go higher or lower, or quicker or longer in time. And then your threshold. Do you want to have it be static or dynamic, right? And then you can set a threshold when it goes to greater than whatever that might be, right? So then you can click next. Oops. Greater than or equal than, let's say, 75. Okay. So then you can set up this alarm. So the alarm is going to do several things, right? One, you have an alarm. So the metric will, if it goes outside of this defined range, if it's okay, and then what you're going to do, select an existing SNS topic or create a new topic. For this one, we didn't want to create a new topic since we don't have this set up, right? And then have an email that goes to an email you specified, right? Create that topic, add a notification, right? And if you want to have another notification, then you can add a Lambda. So if it wants to do something, a Lambda would let you do another event, like increase or scale up or scale out your compute engine, or you can add auto scaling, right? With your auto scaling group or your container service, it can run a different type of action and implement more resources for what's necessary based on the alarm. Then you can have a systems manager option. So systems manager would likely let you update or monitor the actual resource you've created. So that was EC2s. If you had some security issue, the criticals, the highs, the mediums, the lows, you could set this to perform certain actions. That could be shutting down, that could be updating. There's a number of different things. And you can see what the actual actions you could perform are. So about availability, cost, performance, recovery, security, and create a log. And then create an investigation action after the fact. So that investigation action would allow you to send your remediation team to solve this problem for a long-term fix. All right, once you've updated all of this, you'd be able to hit click next, but we haven't entered anything yet, so that doesn't really work. So this is important. There's best practices for this. One, it enhances the security and reliability of your entire setup. So how does this do this? You secure log data, right? This ensures that log data is encrypted at rest and in transit. Use the KMS key for managing encryption keys. This is very important for your logs and for your trails and for all of your resources. Two, restrict access, right? Apply the principle of least privilege to IAM policies associated with CloudWatch. Regularly review and readjust permissions to ensure only necessary access is granted. Three, integrate this with AWS organizations. So for multi-account environments, use AWS organizations to centralize monitoring. So that would be your dev, your test, your UAT, release control, your prod, right? Set up a cross-account dashboard and alarms for a unified view. That would be a more complex setup than what we've gone through, but this gives you an overview of how to set up an initial setup. Four, automate responses. So use those CloudWatch alarms to trigger automated responses using AWS Lambda or Systems Manager automation documents. For example, automatically isolate a compromised EC2 instance upon detecting anomalous activity. And five, monitor custom applications. Use CloudWatch Agent to collect metrics and logs from on-premises servers or custom applications. Configure the agent to send data to CloudWatch for centralized monitoring. So here's some of the benefits. Real-time monitoring. This provides near real-time monitoring of AWS resources and applications. Automated responses. You can enable automatic actions based on predefined thresholds and alarms. Centralized visibility. This offers a unified view of operational health across AWS services and custom applications. Scalability. It scales with your infrastructure, accommodating growing monitoring needs. Cost-effective. Pay only for the metrics and logs you collect and store. By meticulously setting up CloudWatch and adhering to best practices, you can create a robust foundation for monitoring and securing your AWS environment. This will prepare you very much for the security specialty exam. But remember, go to the diamond or look this up, management and governance, CloudWatch, right? Set up your logs, click on your log groups, enter a name and create the group. Enter a name within it, create log streams as needed. Then go for your metrics, search for the metric, choose a namespace, set relevant metrics, and then create an alarm. And then you can create dashboards. So that's going to be, well, there's your alarms. And dashboards will be the bigger picture of everything that you've gotten in CloudWatch. There we go. Default dashboard. You can name it. You can add the widgets that you've created from your metrics and then add even more to visualize this. So the benefits are real-time monitoring, automatic responses, and centralized visibility throughout this, through the dashboards. All right. So next we'll go into Amazon S3 server access logging, right? Amazon S3 server access logging provides detailed records for the requests made to your S3 buckets. These logs capture information such as the requester, bucket name, request time, action type, and error code, offering visibility into who is accessing your data and how. This is crucial for security auditing, compliance, and forensic investigation. So let's go over here. So I have this pinned. You can also search it here, S3, okay? Or you can search here. Storage, S3, okay? So what's the benefits of this? Security auditing. You can track access patterns to detect unauthorized access or anomalous behavior. Compliance. You can maintain records to meet regulatory requirements like HIPAA, PCI DSS, or GDPR. Forensic analysis. You can investigate incidents by reviewing detailed access logs. 4, operational insights. You can understand usage patterns to optimize performance and cost. So, what are some best practices? Separate logging buckets. Store logs in a dedicated bucket to prevent recursive logging and simplify management. Access control. Ensure that only authorized personnel can access the logs by configuring appropriate IAM policies. Lifecycle policies. Implement lifecycle rules to archive or delete old logs, managing storage costs effectively. Monitoring and alerts. So integrate with services like Amazon CloudWatch to set up alerts for unusual access patterns. So this integrates with other AWS services like CloudTrail. While S3 server access logging provides object level access logs, CloudTrail offers API level logging across AWS services. Using both provides a comprehensive view of activities. You can use it with Amazon Athena. You can query S3 access logs using Athena for ad hoc analysis without moving data. Let's see, we'll get some resources here for this. Then you have AWS OpenSearch service. This ingests logs into OpenSearch for advanced search and visualization capabilities. I have a resource here. Okay, so here's some considerations. Latency. Logs are delivered on a best effort case and may experience delays. They are not real time. Data volume. High request volumes can generate large amounts of log data. Plan storage and analysis accordingly. Cost. While logging itself is free, storing and analyzing logs may incur additional costs. By implementing S3 server access logging and following best practices, you can enhance your ability to detect and respond to security incidents effectively, aligning with the objectives of the exam. So how do we do this? Let's go to S3. Okay, let's select a bucket. So this isn't my bucket. Okay. All right, so let's go to properties. And here's server access logging. Let's click edit. We click enable. And then we choose a destination. So I'm in Asia Pacific. So I can store it under a particular prefix to make sure that I have the slash. I could have, let's see, S3 and US toy company. That's just a description, right? Asia logs, right? And then you could set that, and then you'd have the log key, you'd have the destination region, and then you'd specify that log bucket, click Save Changes, and then boom. The benefits would be that this tracks requests for access to your S3 bucket, and it assists in security and access audits. I'm going to click Cancel because I don't want to apply this and then have the costs. All right. So next up will be Amazon GuardDuty. All right. This will be about timely alerts for crucial, effective incident response. So Amazon GuardDuty is a threat detection service that continuously monitors for malicious activity and unauthorized behavior across your AWS environment. It leverages machine learning, anomalous detection, and integrated threat intelligence to identify and prioritize potential threats. So let's go back here, go to the main page. So GuardDuty, it analyzes and processes data from multiple AWS resources. So let's get some documentation. And I'll add these in the description box once completed. Okay. All right. So here's something. AWS CloudTrail logs. This captures API activity and user behavior. Amazon VPC flow logs. This monitors network traffic patterns, right? DNS query logs. This identifies suspicious domain name resolutions, right? And I'll add this. This is a good source that we have here for how to set this up correctly. All right. So these are the sources that it can be applied to, right? Of many. By examining these sources, GuardDuty can detect various threat scenarios, such as, let's see, the following. All right. Oh, no, that was a little generic. Um, let's go here. I'd have to go deeper into this, but you know what? It's your job to go in. I'm only trying to explain the base level, right? So the things that you can look for compromised scenarios would be compromised AWS credentials. So it'll be like unusual API calls or login attempts, data exfiltration attempts. That means unauthorized data transfers, unauthorized deployments. That means resources launched in unexpected regions, malware activity. So that would be detection of unknown malicious software signatures. So let me give you a couple of sources here, and you can go for this as well. All right. Okay. So how do you set this up? Let's go over here. So we can do from the console search bar, and let's go for security identity, GuardDuty. Okay. All right. So try threat detection. You can Amazon GuardDuty all features or GuardDuty malware protection for S3 only, right? So let's click get started. So with the service permissions, when you enable GuardDuty, you grant it permission to analyze VPC flow logs, AWS CloudTrail management logs, DNS query logs, AWS CloudTrail S3 data event logs, EKS audit logs, Lambda network activity logs, and RDS login activity logs to generate security findings. And there's an analyze EBS volume data to generate this, right? And you can go for the service role permissions, right? And so here's the protection plans, right? It's enabling for the first time will automatically enable all protection plans except for the runtime monitoring, right? For which you can enable. Use of GuardDuty are subject to terms of services. You can suspend, disable it, or disable select protection plans at any time, right? So it doesn't manage the data, events, and logs, or make any such data or logs available, but you can configure them to separate this, right? So when you enable this, your account gets automatically enrolled in a 30-day free trial. By default, other programs will get in this, so we might not do that. All right, so you enable GuardDuty, right? Once you enable this, you go to settings and then generate sample findings. From here, it would give you a way to familiarize yourself with the type of alerts GuardDuty can produce. Here's a source that can help. And I'll provide these all in the description. Oops. All right. By exporting then you can set up exporting GuardDuty findings to an S3 bucket for long-term storage or compliance requirements, right? And then you can set up alerts, much like we showed you with CloudWatch and CloudTrail, and integrate this with SNS to receive notifications. So you could get this sent to your email address, your Slack, or any other resource, all right? So protection plans. So GuardDuty offers protection plans to extend its monitoring capabilities. This can be S3 protection to monitor data access patterns in Amazon S3, EKS protection to analyze Kubernetes audit logs for EKS clusters, RDS protection to detect unusual logins in the RDS databases, Lambda protection to monitor network activity of Lambda functions. So these protection plans can be enabled to provide more granular threat detection tailored to your specific AWS services, right? So the benefits of this are that you get continuous monitoring. So you get 24/7 analysis of your AWS environment without the need for additional security infrastructure. You will need additional infrastructure, but this is a good baseline. Integrated threat intelligence. So it'll utilize AWS and third-party intelligence feeds to stay updated on emerging threats. Then it's scalable and cost effective, right? So it'll automatically scale with your AWS usage, and you just saw the 30-day free trial. And you have seamless integration, right? So it'll work with Security Hub, with Amazon Detective, and other servers that we've covered and will cover as we keep going. So by understanding these, you'll definitely be able to make a good headway with the upcoming exam, and you're working on the AWS console or in your company. All right. So next up, we'll go to AWS Security Hub. So you can search this again in the search bar or services. See security, and then Security Hub right here. All right. So AWS Security Hub is a cloud security posture management (CSPM) service, and it automates security best practices like checks, aggregates security findings, and facilitates automated remediation across AWS accounts. It provides a comprehensive view of your security alerts and compliance status, and it aids in the identification and prioritization of security issues. So I'll give you I'm going to add this to the list. All right. So here's some key features, right? Automated security checks. This continuously evaluates your AWS resources against security best practices and standards like AWS Foundational Security Practices, CIS AWS Foundations Benchmarks, PCI DSS, and NIST SP 853. Okay. Did I? SPAQ there. Okay. And then there's security standards and compliance, right? This enables you This enables you to monitor compliance with industry standards by providing a centralized view of your compliance status and facilitating identification of non-compliant resources. Okay. And you'll have this. Then you have aggregated findings. This consolidates security findings from various services like GuardDuty, Inspector, Macy, IAM Access Analyzer, as well as from third-party partner solutions into standardized formats for easier analysis and remediation. Okay. Right. Then you have integration with other AWS organizations. So it allows centralized management of Security Hub across multiple AWS accounts and regions. So it'll enable you to designate a delegated administrator account to manage findings and configurations organization-wide. Okay. And you can automate responses and remediations. So this will integrate with Amazon Event Bridge to automate workflows for responding to findings, such as sending alerts, initiating remediation actions, or updating ticketing systems, right? So how do you do this? You go to the Security Hub, all right? You click Get Started, and then you can choose to enable what you need. So let's take a look. You have to enable AWS config, right? This is the monitoring for all resource recording for all of your accounts in the regions that you control, right? If you don't first have the recording source, you might experience problems with this. So you would download this and set this up, and then you would enable the Security Hub protocols that you want to follow, right? So this is the foundational, resource tagging, CIS, enhanced CIS, NIST, SP, PCI DSS, all of these, right, are different permissions for security checks, right? And then you can enable security permissions from this and delegate the administrator from the account. I'm not going to show you my account, but you're understanding what I'm saying, right? So these would be set up. You can enable Security Hub, and you'd use filters and insights to prioritize and respond to findings as you go. And from your dashboard, you would have a new widget that you could add, which this is not listing it. But that widget would basically provide a readout similar to what you see for cost and usage and resources and different locations you can go to. And it would provide that information and let you see what you could actually need to adjust or what has been adjusted. So what are the benefits? You have a centralized security view that provides a unified dashboard to monitor security findings and compliance status across AWS accounts and services. You have continuous compliance monitoring. This will automate the assessment of your AWS environment against security standards, maintaining a compliance over time. It doesn't have to be 100%, but the higher the better. You have an enhanced incident response. So this will help with quick identification and remediation of security issues through aggregated findings and automated workflows. And you have scalability. So this supports multiple accounts, multiple region environments, and it's suitable for organizations of various sizes. I have a large organization, and we use this as a baseline. And then it works with various AWS services and third-party tools and allows for seamless integration with your existing security operations and workflows. So by incorporating this in your strategy, you'll enhance your ability, your organization, and you'll be able to detect, analyze, and respond to security threats and be prepared for the AWS Security Specialty exam. So remember, go to the waffle, Security Identity Compliance, Security Hub. Okay, you see the cost, the pricing right here. All right. Set this up with what you need. Remember, get config set up, set the security standards you'd want to follow, enable it, and then delegate your administrator, and then enable it. All right. So the top two benefits would be a centralized view of security findings and continuous compliance checks against standards like CIS, PCI DSS, or NIST 853. Okay, next we'll go into AWS Identity and Access Management. So let's go to the walk. You could search this here in the search bar, or you could search this in, let's see, analytics, no. You would search this in somewhere in identity management and governance, maybe. It should be, this is where I would expect it. Maybe security. Oh, no, it would be in security. Yeah, I am. Okay. So it would be either this main IAM or IAM Identity Center. Okay. Okay. So it is in the main IAM right here. Okay. So IAM Access Analyzer is a pivotal tool in AWS's security suite. It's designed to help you identify, remediate unintended access to your AWS resources. By analyzing resource-based policies and access patterns, it ensures that your permissions align with the principles of least privilege, a core tenet of AWS security best practices. This is especially pertinent for the AWS exam, the Security Specialty exam, where understanding and implementing least privilege access is crucial. So here's some key concepts. Zone of trust. So this will define the boundary within which IAM Access Analyzer considers principals as trusted. This can be your AWS account or an entire organization. Resources granting access outside the zone are flagged for review. Findings. IAM Access Analyzer generates findings when it detects that a resource policy allows access to an external principal. These findings help you to identify and remediate unintended access. Let's get you this link here. I'll put this in the description. Okay. Unused access findings. So beyond external access, IAM Access Analyzer can identify IAM roles, users, and permissions that haven't been used within a specified time frame. This aids in cleaning up unnecessary permissions and adhering to least privilege principles. Let's get some AWS documentation for you for here. So this will be very useful for you. Okay. So what are some features and capabilities? One, you have automated policy validation. So before deploying IAM policies, you can validate them against AWS best practices using IAM Access Analyzer's policy checks. This ensures that your policies grant only the intended permissions. Let's see if we get this. Okay, boom. Okay, so this will give you a good overview. All right, then you have policy generation. So based on access activity, IAM Access Analyzer can generate fine-grained IAM policies. This feature is invaluable for refining permissions and eliminating unnecessary access. All right, let's see if this is the right one for this. Okay, so this is a good step-by-step guide that you can go through, right? Okay, and then integration with AWS organizations. So for enterprises managing multiple AWS accounts, IAM Access Analyzer can be set up at the organization level, providing a centralized view of access across all accounts. So what are the benefits? Enhanced security posture by identifying and mitigating unintended access. IAM Access Analyzer helps prevent potential security breaches. Compliance assurance. So when you regularly review and refine permissions, this supports compliance with standards like CIS, AWS Foundations, and NIST. Then you have operational efficiency. So these automated findings and policy suggestions can reduce the manual effort required to manage IAM permissions, allowing your team to focus on other critical tasks, right? So for this, your best bet to do this would be able to create analyzer, right? Then you would say, enter a name here, all right? Or do you want to use unused? It depends. So let's externalize this, right? You set up the service access. So when you created it, the trust relationship between organization, this links this in all accounts in the organization. Okay. So you have your name, you have your zone of trust for just the current organization or your account, and you add your tags, click cancel. That's what I'm going to do. All right. So then we're going to go for IAM policy simulator. Okay. So where is this? So this will be security. Probably IAM. Uh, it's not here. Maybe it's here. I am Identity Center. It probably isn't. Okay, so let's see. No, it's going to be in here. Huh. So it's probably in here. Hmm. Okay, well, IAM Policy Simulator is a tool that lets you. Let me see if this is actually still exists, because sometimes AWS can fall behind. No, it still exists, doesn't it? Check your policies, so it might not be available unless I have an organization. That would be my guess. You can test and troubleshoot IAM policies. Yeah, this is right. IAM policies. You can use this for test by policies. Hmm. So this should be available. Okay, but we'll go in here. Okay. Okay. So the purpose of IAM Policy Simulator is it's a tool that allows you to test and troubleshoot IAM resource-based policies. It helps you understand how your policies affect access to AWS resources, ensuring that permissions are granted or denied as intended. Okay. So what's the expanded view? Let's see. In complex AWS environments, managing permissions across various IAM entities like users, groups, and roles can be challenging. So, misconfigurations can lead to unintended access or denial of service. The IAM Policy Simulator provides a safe environment to evaluate the effects of your policies without making actual changes to your resources. All right? So, how do you do this? You would simulate access for IAM entities. So test policies attached to IAM users, groups, or roles to determine whether specific actions are allowed or denied. So we'll get this resource here. And then evaluate resource-based policies, right? Assess how resource-based policies like those attached to your S3 buckets or Amazon SQS queues interact with IAM policies to affect access permissions. All right, let's see. Okay, I'm going to start moving these into a separate window. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to move these to another window and free up some real estate on this. Give me a little more space here. Okay. Okay. So you can also evaluate resource-based policies, right? These are attached to S3 buckets, SQS queues, and interact with IAM policies to affect it, right? Then you can test permission boundaries. So you can understand how permissions boundaries restrict the maximum permissions for IAM entities, ensuring they don't exceed defined limits. Then you can incorporate service control policies. So if your AWS account is part of an organization using AWS organizations, include service control policies in your simulations to see their impact on access permissions. All right. And then you can simulate contextual conditions. So you can input context keys like IP addresses or dates to see how conditions in your policies affect your decisions. Okay. All right. So how do we do this? Okay. So here's the IAM policy simulator. Okay. So we're definitely going to store this. All right. So you go here, you choose the IAM user or group or whose policies you want to simulate, right? So you choose, let's say, this group. You would enter the filter, but there's no groups affiliated with this. And you see my account here, right? And then select the policies. Well, let's see, users. Okay, so this is here. Select the policies chosen to the identity, S3 guarantee, and it'll show the policy here. And then you can select actions. So let's see, select this. Let's say CloudWatch observability, get telemetry, right? And then you could set, oh, doesn't go for resource levels. Okay, that's okay. We can run a simulation, allowed, right? So with this, you get the context of the simulation to execute the test, right? Analyze the simulation results to see whether the actions are allowed or denied. And then use, where's the show statement? Boom. There's the show statement to identify which policy statements. Where's the show statement? Where is it? Global settings. Hmm. Matching statement. So it doesn't list it. Show. Oh, there's a show statement. Okay. Allow. There it is. So, oh, because I have administrator access. That makes sense. Okay. So that's the feature that allows this, right? So here's the benefits. You can validate policies before deployment. This ensures that your policies grant the intended permissions without unintended access. You can troubleshoot access issues. You can identify and resolve permission-related errors by simulating different scenarios. You can enhance security posture. So by thoroughly testing policies, you can reduce the risk of overpermissive access and potential security breaches. Then you can aid in compliance. This can demonstrate due diligence in access management, which is essential for compliance with standards like HIPAA, NIST, and CIS. So while IAM Policy Simulator is a powerful tool, it is essential to remember that simulation may differ from actual AWS environment behavior. So verify the permissions in your live environment to confirm that they work as expected. So by incorporating this into your workflow, you can actively manage and validate access controls. This will ensure a robust security posture in your AWS environment. Okay, so remember this URL, and I'm going to actually save this in our list of URLs over here. Okay, next, we're going to go, well, let's do a little cleanup real quick. Okay, we're going to clear this up, and we're going to go into our next section, but just bear with me for a moment. Okay, give me a second. Okay, give me a moment. I really do appreciate you bearing with me. Just trying to clear this up so I have a little more screen real estate and get this done. So if you appreciate this, you appreciate me taking the time and trying to do this so I can better articulate what I'm trying to teach. And then we can all be satisfied here. All right. But I do appreciate your patience here. All right. Okay. So let's go forward. Next portion will be on AWS Backup. So AWS Backup is a fully managed service that centralizes and automates data protection across AWS services and hybrid workloads. It offers a range of features designed to meet stringent security and compliance requirements. So, okay. So here's your resource here. All right, so here's the resource for AWS Backup. So it's policy-based automation. So there's backup plans. These are defined backup schedules, retention policies, and lifecycle rules to automate data protection. Then you have tag-based management. Tags, remember tags. This applies backup plans to resources using AWS tags, ensuring consistent policy enforcement across services. Okay. Then you have cross-region and cross-account backups. So cross-region backups automatically copies backups to different AWS regions to support disaster recovery and compliance requirements. Then you have cross-account backups. This manages backups across multiple AWS accounts within an organization, facilitating centralized control and compliance. Okay, let's get this. Oh, I thought that was going to be a new one. Okay, then you have backup vault lock. So you have worm protection, right? So this is a write once, read many policy to prevent deletion or modification of backups during a defined retention period. And compliance mode, right? How do you enforce immutable backups that cannot be altered or deleted, even by administrators? Compliance mode. This aligns with regulatory requirements. Okay. All right. Encryption and access control. So AWS KMS integration is permitted and encouraged. This encrypts backups using AWS's key management service, KMS, to protect data at rest. And you have access policies, right? Like IAM policies. IAM policies, this controls access to backup operations through fine-grained identity and access management policies. Then you have, finally, compliance monitoring with AWS Audit Backup Manager, right? Automated auditing is continuously monitoring backup activities against defined compliance controls. And with this, you come with reporting to generate reports to demonstrate compliance with organizational and regulatory standards. Okay. Okay. All right. We'll get some of this. Did I get? Okay. So, how's this relevant, right? This is relevant because it talks about incident response, so implementing a data backup and recovery strategy to respond to security incidents, logging and monitoring. So you use AWS Backup Audit Manager for compliance and monitoring and reporting, right? Infrastructure security. So it means applying encryption and access control to secure backup data, and then data protection. So you ensure data immutability and compliance to features like backup vault lock. All right. So let's see. Yeah, I already got that here. Okay. So here's how do you practically implement it, right? So to effectively use this, you need to go. We'll get in here for a second. You basically need to define a backup plan. So that means you create the policy specifying the backup frequency, the retention, the life cycle, then assign resources using tags. You apply the backup plans to this relevant AWS resources. You configure the vault lock to configure this so that you are in compliance mode for critical data. And you set up cross region or cross account backups. And so you can enable this to replicate to other regions or accounts as needed. And then you monitor your compliance using the backup audit manager to track adherence to specific backup policies. All right. So how do you do this in the console? Well, so you can search here, right? See, areas backup. You see that there. You can start or go here and see security. I would imagine it's, let's see, storage. I don't think storage. Oh, it is in storage. Wow. Okay. Okay. So you go here, you create a backup plan. All right. So you can start with a template. You can build a new plan. You can do it using a JSON. That's going to be enhanced. Okay. So you select the template. So 35-day, monthly, weekly, monthly, 5 year. That's so that you have retention windows. So let's do monthly. Name it basic backup, basic backup. All right. And then set up your backup rules. All right. Daily backups by default. All right. Or you can add backup rules. Okay. And then, well, that's an add backup. Okay. And then you can set your snap. So let's start from the top, right? So you can set up a backup rule name, right? Basic backup plus. So the default vault frequency, and you can set that, or you can set a custom cron expression for date, time, whatnot. All right. Start within 8 hours. So this is early in the morning. Then you can set the complete within whatever time frame up to 30 days. And you can set a continuous point in time recovery. That'll be important for if you want to restore this or rewind this back to a specific time. And it offers you a lower RPO and R2TO. So return point and return time. And then you can have a storage for moving this for lifecycle management, right? So time and warm storage, and then you can move this to cold storage. So the lower you set this, so you have 1 day, this will run very quickly. Okay. And then, so I'd say, yeah, 8 days makes sense. And then set between 108 and 365. So 180. So this set your backup in, let's say 30 days. say 30 days, and then 180 days. So you have a total of 210 days with this backup plan. And then you can create new backup plans, let's say at 30 days, just be a little more consistent about this. Then where do you back this up for the selected resource types? So let's go for S3, okay? Copy to which destination? So you could do any one of these AWS regions, create tags relevant to your team or your project or both, and then add the backup. You can add a backup rule, right? So click cancel. So that was a potential backup rule, right? And then let's see. This is advanced, which I don't really want to do this. So this would be snapshots for Windows machines, but we don't typically have to do that. And you just create, and then you'd be able to monitor. So go in here, go to your dashboard, and you'll be able to monitor from your dashboards with your backups, your copies, your restores, and then your vaults, where you back this up, what actually has this locked so that nobody can access this. So you have a secure backup of your system and resources, and then you should be good to go. So the two major benefits, this can automate your backup process and ensures durability and compliance. You stick with those and what we've taught you, you should have a good coverage for the exam. Next up, we'll do a little cleanup. Okay. Do a little bit of cleanup before we go to our next topic. All right. So the next portion is going to be AWS Systems Manager. So AWS Systems Manager is a comprehensive management service that enables you to automate operational tasks across AWS sources. It integrates various capabilities, including automation runbooks and incident manager. It facilitates efficient incident detection, response, and resolution. Okay. And I'll have some documentation. Okay. So what do you do here? Right? So automation runbooks. Runbooks are predefined workflows that automate common maintenance and deployment tasks. So they can be used to trigger manual or automatically in response to specific events, ensuring consistent and swift remediation actions. Right? So here's an example: restarting EC2 instances, or isolating compromised resources, or updating security groups. Okay? So here's some documentation on this. Okay. So an incident manager, right? So let me go. Why isn't this autofill? Systems Manager. Here we go. Let's go over here. Okay, so Incident Manager, right? This is a feature within Systems Manager designed to coordinate incident response efforts, right? You can do different things like automated incident detection, so it'll integrate with Amazon CloudWatch and EventBridge to automatically detect anomalies and trigger incidents. Then you have response plans, right? These are predefined plans that specify the actions to take, including which runbooks to execute and whom to notify. So let's see. So Incident Manager, okay? And then where's response plans? Where do I see it? So with this, you have response plans to execute what and notify what. Then you have engagement, so you can notify people. So let's see. So your CloudWatch tool. All right, so here's your incident manager. Okay. And then you have a collaboration tools, right? So, oh, there we go. There we go. Response plans. Okay. Your escalation, on call schedules. Oops. On call schedules, contacts. Okay. Okay, so this hasn't been onboarded. That's okay though. But these are response plans, so you can set this up for notifications. All right, and then you have collaboration tools to work with on tools like Slack or Microsoft Teams or whatever your team actually uses. And then you have a post incident post-incident analysis, right? And then you also have a lot of other tools for change management, for managing your nodes, and for accessing a lot of your resources, right? Like I'll regularly use Session Manager, okay? So how do you do this, right? You go to the Systems Manager console, where we are, and then you can choose something along the lines of automation, right? In automation, you can create an automation runbook, and then you can define the document. Uh, so you can do a walkthrough, which I always recommend, especially if you're going to use some tool. Okay, you can use their visual, or you can use their documentation. So you can define this YAML or JSON, right? And then you can use a runbook or import a runbook, right? And then you can start to configure the steps that you want as far as this goes, right? So what are the steps? What are the parameters? And then you can save the runbook or create it, right? Oops, didn't mean to click that, for future use. Okay, so let's go to Incident Manager. Right, so Incident Manager, how do you get prepared, right? So one, you set up in Systems Manager, you do this by setting up contacts and on-call schedules to ensure the right personnel are notified during events. So let's go into here. So you'd set up this. I've read and agreed to this. Go to next. You set up regions to look for. I think we're in Asia. Oh, we're in US East 1. Okay. So this is the region we're going to do this. All right. And then you set up the KMS key. You could do an AWS one or a new, or choose an existing one. Set your tags correctly. Set your service permissions, and then click create, right? And from there, you can assign contacts and escalation plans and the runbooks to run and execute automatically. And you can integrate this with communications channel for real-time collaboration. And then you'd set up your metrics and alarms to monitor incident project, right? So you can integrate this with CloudWatch or EventBridge. How would you do that? So within CloudWatch, you'd create alarms based on metrics and then configure the alarms to trigger the appropriate response plan in Incident Manager. In EventBridge, you could define rules that capture specific events like unauthorized API calls, and then set the target as the incident managed response plan and initiate the automated actions. All right. So with this, you can reduce manual intervention, ensure faster mitigation of incidents. Then you can standardize response actions and minimizing errors and omissions. You can also improve collaboration by facilitating real-time communication among responders, which enhances coordination. And it's scalable, which means it can handle incidents across multiple accounts, multiple regions for large-scale environments. And finally, you're good for your compliance and auditing. So this will maintain detailed logs and reports for post-incident analysis and regulatory compliance, right? So Systems Manager will make sure that you are at the top of your AWS security best practices. If you continue, which we will in the next round with logging and monitoring, you'll have a more robust understanding of what your security looks like in your environment. Thank you for joining me, and have a good day.